Oh, hi. This week we're in event prep madness. I have a few weeks until my first event, but then there's a second, even bigger event the week after. So I'm just trying to not end up in panicky crunch mode the 3 days leading up to either of them. So trying to stay ahead of stuff. I have an ambitious list, but it might actually be doable because I've been chipping away at it for weeks, if not months at this point. A factor that was stressing me out is I have some of the same types of inventory, but some new ones that I'm adding in. I just wanted to change my whole setup, essentially. This past spring, I finally was able to purchase a set of grid cubes. They're these assemble however you want panels. The kit I got came with 15 solid black plastic squares and then 29, I think, metal grid panels and a set of connectors. Some problems I had with the layout I was doing before. Biggest one of all was that I couldn't see people. If someone was shorter than me, granted, half the people that come to events are shorter than me. I'm a tall bitch. If there was anyone 5'7" or higher, I just couldn't see them very well, so I'd have to duck down, and I was trying to find a good director's chair option. I did used to bring a bar stool, but it broke, so I don't have access to that anymore. And the chairs they provide, or chairs I already have, which are just basic camp chairs, always sit really low, but they have director style camp chairs. Thing is, they're so fucking expensive. In addition to having that height restriction thing happening, it also just felt very closed in. The shape I had gone with before felt very much this is a shop stall, but I couldn't see all that much going on. And I don't know, it felt just like a very restrictive layout. If someone was trying to shop at one of the sections, I don't think it was very intuitive for someone else to come in at a different section because it all was one unit. Does that make any sense at all? I think it just was harder to shop, even though this was a stark improvement from any of my previous setups. It's always going to be evolving. I made mental notes about the trouble spots. I also really wanted to highlight the jewelry so that there were packaged shop yourself, grab whatever ones you want, earring sets and necklaces on the tray, but also having all the hanging ones so it was a little more obvious the color and the size and the length of everything with the dangling ones off of the little hangers. Easily one of my favorite ideas I've ever had. Wanted to really feature those more because I felt like the jewelry was a little bit of an afterthought previously. That's been my biggest seller in previous times when I've highlighted it properly. Then the other thing was the way I had my smaller bags. They were set too nicely and they were inside the grid cubes that were facing out. It felt a little too closed off and it was too organized so people didn't want to mess around with it. So I really want to do the basket approach here and have smaller keychain bags in one, and I am making more dumpling pouches for this other one. And then just having what dice bags I have left over. I don't know if I'm going to make any more unless that first event I do sells out completely, then I'll probably make another batch, but I haven't been moving those as much. So I think just setting it at the bottom here and letting people rifle through. I do have few enough that I can fit it in one basket now. The other thing I have a really bad habit of is trying to put every single thing out. I especially do it with the tote bags because I went way overboard making tote bags. I think I still have over 40 or 50 designs, and there are multiples of some of those, so there's even more than that, and it's just an unhinged amount of inventory to carry around. Trying to keep that in mind with the smaller bags as well. I think separating stuff out into these freestanding sections was definitely the move. I spent half a day testing out this setup, and I'm so happy I gave myself that window because it was weighing on me that I hadn't done it yet. All right, so first thing, which is a very tricky part, is finding space to set up a 6-foot table. So this is actually where we set up Bert's pen. This is the table. This is also something I was able to afford this year. Thankfully, I made a little bit at each market I did, and honestly, it's from folks over on Patreon and Etsy sales that have provided the funds for this type of investment. So thank you all for this. I do have one of these stretchy style table covers. I prefer it, and I don't even hook it onto the back legs because I like having room behind the table. The other thing I forgot is I do have this big piece of teal plaid fabric that I usually put over it. I think it'll still look good with everything I was doing because I have a lot of black display pieces or clear. All the inventory is like bright pops of color. That little connector piece I broke and hulked out a little bit. Taking it apart if I'm in a rush and just trying to get home because I'm tired, sometimes those break and there's a little crack in them. They're not the most durable things in the world. So I did find some baskets at the dollar store as well as this mirror. There are people, if they're trying on jewelry, or not trying on the jewelry, but like holding it up to see what it'll look like. And also probably helpful with garments, thinking about it. I wanted to let people be able to see themselves because they'll ask a friend or they'll literally like take stuff and go in the bathroom because I trust folks. It's fine. But yeah, I've been looking for a cheap mirror for a while and this was a freestanding one. So I thought that would be really helpful and it's obvious like what it's for. I decided to hang some of these with S hooks onto the frame. I did have to use pliers to clamp them down. Then I did remember that I have some scarves I wanted to display. I never have a good home for these. They were kind of an afterthought with just leftover fabric from some garments I made. I moved this stand around so many times. It's just me being really nitpicky as far as where things are gonna go and how it's positioned, but I really like this first section for the tiny bags. Then I wanted as big of a wall as I could make for the bigger bags, the sling shoulder bags and the totes. I wanted them to be kind of above each other, so I knew I needed to go at least 4 panels high. I wanted to kind of black out the back because another thing that happens at events is other people will have huge displays. Even if it's just like the wall color behind me doesn't suit my aesthetic and I'm not able to have my backdrop up because I do have a big black backdrop that I should have put behind here so you didn't see all the shit hanging behind it, but alas, there's not enough table space to fit 3 wide like I was hoping to. 2 wide is going to work. All of this is very tedious and that's why I was putting it off because I knew it was going to take a lot of time and I was going to have to redo stuff and probably get really annoyed. And I did know I wanted the totes on the bottom and then have the shoulder bags up top because I want those to draw more of a focus than the totes. I also just think they're more visually interesting than the tote bags are. So I was trying to figure out how to get the multi-level thing going without having the grid panels going across the middle just because like they weren't at the right height I needed them to be. So I found these old metal tubes. I don't remember what they're from. So it's going through like 1.5 grids high instead of having everything closed off more. But the hooks that I have to hang the tote bags wouldn't work for this. Taking the whole rod out of that section and then hanging them back on there. When people are shopping there, that's not super practical. Nobody's gonna wanna take it down. And I wanna make it as easy as possible for people to grab stuff because if someone had to ask, hey, can I have this one? Instead of just grabbing it, I don't want that to be a barrier for the sale to happen. Since I have that big bag wall down to 2 wide, I had extra pieces to build what I'm currently working on, which is going to be the jewelry stand. A thing I really liked about one of my previous setups is that I had the flat black plastic panels behind the jewelry setup because it was just less distracting to the eye to have something solid behind it. So I wanted to carry that over into this setup as well. And because I ended up making this tower 4 cubes tall, I actually kept the 2 center ones empty in the front. So I had way more space to hang the jewelry and also ended up having some room to fit the necklace stand that I have. I was like putting a really colorful piece on the stand because it just gives a little pop like that, you know? And then I immediately got distracted and started working on some other alternative to these rods, and I took a zip tie and strung it across and tried to put as much tension as I could with these like little clips that I have. It kind of worked. I really wanted it to work. It just doesn't hold the weight that I need it to, where I'm gonna string as many tote bags as I can fit on here, and you can see it immediately starts drooping. Didn't like how it ended up working. So I did find these like tray hanger, they're not baskets, but they're just like little platform things. I don't know what these are usually used for. I was able to like hang them on the inside of the cubes and adjust whatever height I had, just hang the tote bags underneath, and there's still a separation from the bags on top and the bags below. If I come up with something better, if there's a narrow enough rod that can go across there that I can fit my little mini clips onto it, so it has to be like, I don't know, a really thin gauge stick or whatever, but for now I'm gonna use these little shelves. Then I took some more of those dollar store baskets and S hooks and hung hung them along the side of the jewelry stand. And you can just barely see I have these jackalope bags up top. I don't want to hang too many wristlets because, again, people didn't want to take them off because they were like displayed too nicely. So that top grid I had above the jackalope bags was also where my main price list is going to go. And I wanted a little extra height to that where people can't reach stuff there, but if it's just good signage that no one has to interact with, I thought that would be helpful. And then yeah, I found a spot for the mystery bags, and this is the final-ish result. Something may come up down the line that I want to adjust, but having room for me in the middle there is gonna just make it less frustrating, and like people don't have to look for me in any other context. So I have one set of jewelry hanging there, and this is the display I mentioned. I have some little cups for keychains and stuff, we'll see. I'm really pumped with this sectioned out display I ended up coming up with. I think it's going to be more approachable, and I'm pumped about it. And then also I recorded my sketches of how I wanted to add the signage to this display. As for the signage, I guess there's not as much to talk about as I maybe was anticipating looking at it, where I just have a couple spaces I intentionally left open for the main signage to go, but then I also like having separate sign pieces in front of the specific items. No matter how much signage you have, how many prices you have on things, all the mystery bags even have like stickers that say exactly what it is, where it's $6 or 2 for $10, and people will still ask how much stuff is. So just be prepared for that when you do your own markets. But I try to like simplify it as possible. So I'll have 1 or 2 like full menus with all of the prices of everything listed out, and then on each section have another set of prices that are like just each individual one. I hope this was neat to watch. I'm really glad I took the time to do this. I'm feeling much calmer about what I'm gonna be making, and I know what gaps I want filled, and I have a bunch of stuff already cut out. Things are happening, and I'm definitely heading in a good direction. I, of course, always want to make more garments, but I'm not going to stress out too much about that, especially because so much of the material I have is like fleece, and yes, it'll be September when I'm working on these, but once I'm into like the colder months, once winter has arrived, I think I will focus on those some more. But there might be time for like some t-shirt dresses and lightweight summer skirts, but it feels good to have that situated. I am gonna spend the rest of this week hammering out as many bags as I can get through without murdering myself. I do have a lot of errands I have to get through this week, which I feel like they always take way more time than I anticipate them taking, where it's like, oh, just a quick run out to the store, and then like half my day is gone. And then I also have some repairs I'm doing for some folks that couldn't make it to the ales and alterations night that I recently did at the brewery. And then next week I also have to build an entire trivia game, and I haven't even picked the theme yet, so fingers crossed I come up with something good and fun for people. And I'm also working some brewery events. I have a wedding to do. A friend is visiting from Cleveland today that I'm gonna go spend some time with, and then I'll be right back to it hammering stuff out once I'm home. But listen, for real, I get to dedicate time to building inventory and spend half a day workshopping my table display so that I can have more successful events in the future, and hopefully just like snowball effect keep improving across the board because of everybody over on Patreon. Y'all are the ones making this happen. There are people that I watch that if they do an event every week for like 3 months straight, every time they do a mock-up table setup, I'm gonna watch it. Even if it's the same setup every single time and they literally just like move one basket an inch over, I am so fascinated by other people's table setups. So this is probably like very, very niche, but I wanted to share what I was working on because it's content I enjoy watching, so thought I would share it with y'all. I am going to take a little break, go get lunch with a friend, and then back to the grindstone. I will see you back here with another video next Friday. Thank you so much for hanging out.